Good morning, if it's morning. I'm not sure when you guys are watching this or when it got uploaded. I don't know. I'm doing this late at night. But anyways, hello everyone, and welcome to a new series on the channel that will honestly probably end up becoming its own channel at some point. But welcome to Actually Sports. I am Griffin. I'm your host for this, and we will have co-hosts along the way. But this is going to be a sports podcast where we discuss mostly football and probably a little bit of basketball, but pretty much anything of note that's happening in sports, we will be discussing on this podcast. It's going to be once a week. I think we'll probably upload it every Friday, at least record it every Friday, probably upload it Saturday mornings, something like that. But welcome to the new show. This week, we're going to dive right in. It is the finale for the NFL regular season. This is the first season that we had 17 games instead of 16 games. It's also the first season post-COVID, kind of. Corona-chan kind of decided to wreak its ugly face late in the season and wreck some teams' years. But it was mostly normal. There were fans at most games. I don't know how California functioned because I don't really care personally. But it is the final week of the regular season, and thank God we've actually got some drama going on in these games. A lot of these games actually matter. I don't know about you guys, but I can't stand it when games don't matter in the NFL regular season. You know, you got a ton of teams resting players. Nobody cares who wins, loses, yada, yada, yada. We actually have some drama going on this year. So in this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and break down each of the matchups for this week. We're going to talk about the playoff implications that are going on within some of these matchups, who I think is going to win these games, some important storylines in each of the games as well, and then we will also go over the playoff seedings as I see them happening. Also, this is the second year, I think, it might be the third year, but I think it's the second, of there being 7 teams on each side of the bracket in the NFL playoffs instead of the old school 6. There are 3 wildcard teams now, and only the first overall seed on each side gets a bye. But we'll go ahead and get off into that tangent later. Let's go ahead and just list off all of the games that are going to be occurring this week in the NFL. We have the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Denver Broncos. That is in Denver. I don't know where all of these games are taking place, but I know that one because I was at the Chiefs' home game against Denver. But next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys versus the Philadelphia Eagles. We have the Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions. The Tennessee Titans are facing off against the Houston Texans. Seattle Seahawks are against the Arizona Cardinals. We have the Chargers going up against the Raiders. Cincinnati Bengals are going up against the Cleveland Browns. We have the Chicago Bears going against the Minnesota Vikings. The Washington Football Team, yeah, great name, versus the New York Giants. We have the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Baltimore Ravens. New York Jets face off against the Buffalo Bills. The San Francisco 49ers go up against the Wow, I almost said St. Louis Rams. They were the St. Louis Rams my whole life. The Los Angeles Rams. New England faces off against the Dolphins. And then we have the Panthers versus the Bucs. By Bucs, I mean Buccaneers, not the basketball team. So, those are the matchups we have. Now we're going to go ahead and break down each of the matchups, who we think is going to win, and some interesting storylines in each of the games. Now, some of these are going to be more in-depth than others because I won't lie to you, there are some games that just straight up don't matter this week. But the good news is that there's only like 5 of them in this week, and usually the last week of the NFL regular season, there's only like 3 games that matter, but a lot of these games matter, and some of them are extremely important to their franchises, and I think will be some of the most watched games of the season. Now, let's go ahead and start off with the Kansas City Chiefs going to Denver to face the hapless Broncos. And I say hapless lovingly because I really wish that the Broncos could have succeeded this year, but it just was not in the cards. So, I'll just start this off real blunt and simple. Kansas City's going to win this game. I don't see a way that Kansas City loses this game. They're not resting players, which I think is really important for playoff implications for Kansas City, but they're not resting any of their players, so you're going to have Kansas City at full strength going up against a Denver team that does not have its starting quarterback and really does not have an identity as a team. Denver has perplexed me all year long because we knew that their offense wasn't going to be their strong suit. Like, they signed Teddy Bridgewater in free agency. I think they signed him. Maybe they traded for him. I can't even remember at this point. But Teddy Bridgewater is their starting quarterback, and I love Teddy Bridgewater. I seriously love the guy. He has so much heart and so much drive. He fights so hard for everything he has in the NFL. He almost lost his career when he was in Minnesota. And he's a fighter. I love Teddy. I've loved him since he was at Louisville. But he's not an amazing quarterback. He's really not. And to Teddy Bridgewater fans out there, all like two of you, it's not an insult to say that he's not a good quarterback. Like, he's fine. He's a good game manager, but if I'm having to rely on my quarterback to win the game, I'm probably not going to pick Teddy. I'm sorry. And the thing is that Teddy, I would argue, is still a better option than Denver's run game is, because I don't know about you guys, but Denver's run game, it's been fine the past 4 or 5 years, but it's not something that is strong enough to overcome offenses that can score at will like Kansas City. And that's difficult when you have to play teams like Kansas City twice a year because they're in your division. It didn't used to be that terrible, but now that the Chargers have Justin Herbert and that offense is clicking, it's terrible. Like, it's one of the worst things that you could have wished for as an organization. Now you have two teams in your division that can just clobber you on offense every week in and week out. But the only thing that I really see happening in this game is I wouldn't be surprised if it's a lower scoring affair for Kansas City. I'm thinking like probably 24 points, something like that. The score of their last meeting, I think, I was there. I think it was like 27-3, something like that. It was a blowout, but it didn't feel like a blowout. And I think that that's what's going to happen here, because Kansas City's defense, even though they really, really screwed the pooch last week against Cincinnati, they just decided to not exist against Cincinnati. Even though that happened, I expect them to bounce back against an offense that really doesn't have options at all, because Teddy is out, so they're having to start Drew Lock in Denver, and Drew Lock is not the answer at all at quarterback. So I see Kansas City winning this game in a blowout that doesn't really feel like a blowout, and Kansas City will end the year on a high note after losing a game that they really should have won last week. Up next, Dallas and Philadelphia. This is a really interesting one to me, because Dallas was being claimed as the Super Bowl champions halfway through the year, even though Green Bay was obviously playing better football than them, and I would argue that Kansas City was playing better football than Dallas as well, and at that point of the year, so was Arizona. But we all know how this works. We're really all just existing in Jerry's world at this point. The entire world is just a giant AT&T stadium at this point. But this is interesting to me because I feel like Dallas might actually have more to prove in this game than Philadelphia does. Which, the reason why I say that is because Dallas has underperformed. Even though they've won enough games to win their division and lock up a pretty high seed in the playoffs, at least, up till about 5 weeks ago, I think they were the number 1 seed or like the number 2 seed, something like that. They were very high. And they just have so much to prove because now they have players getting injured and out, and questions are popping up about the offense because Dak hasn't been consistent, which that's a whole different topic that we might approach on a later episode, is Dak Prescott. But it reminds me a lot of Green Bay Packers teams is what's going on right now. And that's not just because of Mike McCarthy, but Green Bay Packers were the kings of the regular season for a few years. Like, you could not beat them. And then they get to the playoffs and they lose because they could not overcome a team with a good game plan. And I feel like that's what's going on in Dallas right now. And Philadelphia doesn't have anything to lose. Their position is locked in the playoffs. They are the number 7 seed in the NFC. So they can't go higher. They can't be eliminated from the playoffs. They're in. And if you're a Philadelphia fan, you need to be happy with how this year has gone. Sirianni, I think that's his name, is a first-year head coach in Philadelphia walking into a difficult situation after Doug Peterson left. And this team's in the playoffs. And in the NFC this year, I think that's something to be happy about because the NFC has been just as brutal as the AFC, just in different ways. And for them to manage to come out with the schedule that they've played, the teams that they've had to play, the ones they've lost, the ones they've beaten, I'm impressed with the Eagles this year. And even though I'm not screaming to the high heavens that Jalen Hurts is a phenomenal quarterback and that they have the answers, I'm not saying that. I don't think that they have the answers yet. But I think that the Eagles are moving in the right direction, and honestly, this is a division rivalry, so I would not be surprised if Philadelphia actually pulls off the upset this week against Dallas. Like, that's actually my pick. I think Philadelphia's defense can manage to give Dallas some fits. All you have to do against Dak Prescott is throw some elusive coverages against him, and he sees ghosts for some reason. Doesn't make any sense because he's got the arm strength to put the ball wherever he wants, but it's very interesting, but I'm picking Philly this week to beat Dallas. Up next, this is not going to take very long. Green Bay versus Detroit. Green Bay's going to win this game. Aaron Rodgers is not sitting out at all. Well, I mean, he might sit out, but he's starting the game at least, which shocks me. But he is going to get the start. Also, his amazing all-pro lineman, Bakhtiari, is coming back this week after he suffered a terrible ACL injury last year. This is going to be his first game of the season. What a heck of a time to come back. Not really, because there's nothing on the line for the Packers. If they lose, they're still the number 1 overall seed. So I don't quite understand why they're starting Rodgers. I can see why they're putting Bakhtiari in to try to get him some practice against a team that he can handle. I mean, he can handle Detroit, no problem. There's nobody on Detroit's line that he can't at least beat on 80% of the snaps, at least. So, yeah, I mean, Bakhtiari's coming back, and also the starting center, Josh Myers, is coming back off of injury as well. So not only is Rodgers starting, but the offensive line is actually going to be better than it has been all year. And going up against Detroit, I just don't see a way Detroit does it. Green Bay is not Arizona. I'm sorry, Detroit, but Green Bay is not the Cardinals. Matt LaFleur is a much better coach than Cliff Kingsbury is, and I see Green Bay walking away with this one easily. Up next, this one's personal. Tennessee versus the Texans. So the Titans are my favorite football team. And I have been very impressed with the Titans since Derrick Henry got hurt. The year that they were having before Henry got hurt didn't really surprise me, except the game against the Jets, which I still think was just a fluke. And I think at this point, the rest of the league agrees that that was a fluke. But because, I mean, the Jets almost did it to the Buccaneers, so it's kind of like, maybe they can function as a football team every once in a millennium. Maybe they can do it. But the Texans have had Tennessee's number. As a Titans fan, I know this very well. The Texans always manage to beat the Titans at least once a year. They beat us earlier in the year. I was pissed about it because I can't stand the Texans when the Titans are playing them. It's like we forget how to win games against Houston. No matter how bad they are, we struggle. Derrick Henry is not going to be back for this game, which I think is fine. I think that's smart. We won the South, so we're for sure in the playoffs at least. And I don't know how much Vrabel cares about home field advantage, and I don't think the Titans players care that much about home field advantage in the playoffs. It's nice to have, but I don't think that they necessarily care about it. So I'll be intrigued to see how this game shakes out, but I do have faith in Tennessee winning this game just because I think Houston is going to try to ground and pound this game and just run the ball as much as they can. They just gave Rex Burkhead an extension through 2022, and into the 2023 season. So I think that they're really going to try to keep the offense flowing through him, which is good because they actually have something on offense finally. And also, Mills, their quarterback, he's not terrible. He's actually doing pretty well for stepping in as a rookie. He's no Deshaun Watson, and I mean, arguably nobody in the league is Deshaun Watson. But I have faith in Tennessee's ability to win this game because I do think that they care enough about being the number 1 overall seed, which is where they sit right now. And if they win, they get the number 1 overall seed. I think they care enough to try to beat the Texans because it's no secret that most Titans veteran players also hate the Texans because they know they always lose to them. And also Mike Vrabel likes to make games personal, and I think because Tennessee lost to them earlier this year when they shouldn't have, Mike Vrabel took it personally, which means he will make it personal against the Texans. I do expect maybe a lower scoring game on both sides. This might be like a 16-10 game, something like that, but we'll see. Next game on the docket, Seattle versus Arizona. Seattle is one of my favorite NFL teams. My favorite NFL teams are the Titans, the Chiefs, and the Seahawks. So this one's personal to me because I've watched Russell Wilson ever since he was at Wisconsin, back when he was in his second stint of college. Because originally he went to North Carolina State, played some baseball, then went to Wisconsin, played more football, and then he got drafted by the Seahawks. I think Seattle wins this game. I truly do. Because Arizona beat the Cowboys last week to stop their skid. Yeah, big whoop. You beat a team that's been inconsistent all year, and you beat them on talent, like sheer talent alone. But I think that out of these two teams, Arizona actually has more to prove than Seattle does. I don't think Arizona is going to win the NFC West. I just don't. I don't think they will. Because I think Seattle's going to beat them here. But Arizona has been so wildly inconsistent in the second half of the season. And I remember when people were singing their praises this year about how amazing they were. And, just give them this, man, just get them to the Super Bowl now. They're the best team in the league. And it's like, are they though? Because I'm a Kansas State Wildcat fan, which means I'm very aware of Texas Tech because they're in the same conference. So I watched Cliff Kingsbury as a coach in the Big 12. And let me just say that the issues that the Cardinals have right now are the exact same ones that he had at Texas Tech, where they have issues with stupid turnovers, stupid penalties, and really ridiculous play calling most of the time. And then the defense is just a mess a lot of the time, which is crazy because the Cardinals have really good defensive players. Like Budda Baker is an animal on defense. That is a one-man wrecking crew this year. But the thing is, Cliff Kingsbury, I personally believe, is an inept head coach. He's a great offensive coordinator. He is a terrible head coach. So Arizona has a lot to prove because they need to prove that hiring Cliff Kingsbury was not a mistake and that he can be consistent. And they need to prove that they are worthy of all of the praise that they were getting this year and that it wasn't just because Cliff Kingsbury's offense decided to work like it's supposed to for 8 games. So Arizona has a lot to prove here, but also Seattle, it could be Russell Wilson's last game as a Seahawk. I really hope it's not. I really, really hope that it's not his last game as a Seahawk because he's the best quarterback in franchise history. That's obvious. And as far as my adult life as an NFL fan, I think that Russell Wilson has been one of the most successful quarterbacks. He puts up great numbers. He's successful. He wins. He should have won 2 Super Bowls. If they give Marshawn Lynch that ball, they win. But also if Russ decides to tuck it and run on that play, which was an option because it was a bootleg out to the right, it was an option bootleg out to the right, meaning that he had the option to run that ball or pass it, and unfortunately he made the wrong call to pass when he should have ran. If he runs that ball, he scores the touchdown and they win. But I really hope it's not his last game. And I think that he does too. I think that he hopes it's not his last game as well. I would rather see Pete Carroll go than Russell Wilson, personally. I think Pete Carroll has personality issues with players, and I just think that they need to get an offensive-minded coach in there because they've been trying to fix the defense ever since the Legion of Boom came apart, and it's never happened. So I say at that point, you give up on trying to revive your defense and you really invest in the offense. So I think that Seattle should let Pete Carroll go, and he'll probably just retire, honestly, and go after an offensive-minded head coach. Like, man, if they could get I always forget his name, but Kansas City's Eric Bieniemy. If they could somehow convince Eric Bieniemy out of Kansas City, I would be ecstatic. I think that would be an amazing hire. But Seattle versus Arizona, I have Seattle winning this game because when Russell Wilson really, really, really desperately wants to win and the matchup isn't necessarily bad against Seattle, they win. So I expect that to happen. An athlete like Tyler Lockett could have an amazing day. Also, Rashad Penny is finally looking like the running back that we knew he could be coming out of college. So I actually think Seattle's going to win that game. Up next, possibly the game of the week. LA Chargers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders season has been screwed up. So much crap has happened to this poor team. And they're still winning you're in playoff scenario. Like, I feel like for the Chargers, this is a desperation game. The Chargers were picked by a lot of people to win the AFC West this year. And I wasn't convinced. Originally, at the beginning of the year, I had the Chargers as the number 5 seed in the playoffs, meaning that they were going to be the top wild card. I had them at, I think, 11-6. And then I had Kansas City at 12-5. And I think I nailed Kansas City's record, but the Chargers have dropped some games that I think were coaching issues. I think their new head coach has cost them some games. That's not anything to hold against him. He's a rookie head coach. But, excuse me, but this is a desperation game for the Chargers because they had a lot of high hopes coming into the year, and they are having to fight for a playoff spot. And then on the other side of the coin, which speaking of the coin, there's a coin that someone flipped 17 times to predict the Raiders' record this year, and it actually has been right about every single game except one. It has gone 15-1. So, which is crazy. It has to be wrong in order for the Raiders to make the playoffs because it says they lose tomorrow or Sunday. But the Raiders, on the other hand, lost their head coach, lost their top receiver, just had another defensive player get arrested for DUI. Like, they have had so much stuff go wrong this year. And John Madden passed away. Like, the legend of the franchise passed away. And the Raiders are in playoff contention. Now, I don't know about you, but when the Raiders have to play with a lot on the line and emotion, they typically win. At least with Derek Carr and the players that they've had, they typically win. And this is a game where a guy like Hunter Renfrow, this is a game where a guy like Hunter Renfrow maybe goes off because he has the clutch gene. Every time Clemson needed something when he was on the field, it was him who came up with the big play. And then last week when the Raiders really, really needed a big play on, I think it was a third down play, like a third and long play, who catches the ball? Hunter Renfrow. He's just clutch. He does it. So I think that the Raiders, because it's not that they have something to prove, it's that they want to prove something. They want to accomplish it. They don't have to do it. They want to. I see the Raiders winning this game, which will get them into the playoffs, and the Chargers will have to suffer from a disappointing season. Up next, Cincinnati versus Cleveland. Cincinnati is resting Joe Burrow. Cleveland has Baker Mayfield out because he is finally getting surgery for his shoulder. I see Cincinnati winning this game as well because I don't think Cleveland feels like risking the injury of their players any more than they already have. Nick Chubb, if you let Nick Chubb run all over the field, then I think he can run all over Cincinnati's defense and win them the game. But I don't know how much they care about it. But then on the other side, Cincinnati isn't necessarily locked into their playoff spot, but I think they're okay with where it is, especially since Joe Burrow is out this week. If Joe Burrow was playing, okay, maybe they really try all out to win this game. But I see Cincinnati winning this game. I just think they have too many weapons, even with a backup quarterback. I think they have too many weapons, especially Jamar Chase. Holy cow, Jamar Chase. It's one of the best displays of talent I've seen by a wide receiver in my lifetime, and he's only a rookie. But with that, Cincinnati, I believe, will still be the 4th seed, maybe the 3rd seed. I don't know. I'll have to look at my predictor later. But Cincinnati's in the playoffs. They won the AFC North, which is always a difficult division to win. Very, very impressive accomplishment from a team that is young, both in coaching and in talent on the field. And I'm very impressed by what Cincinnati has done. And I think Joe Burrow is the truth. That kid can play. Up next, we have Chicago versus Minnesota. I'm not going to spend much time on this because even though Minnesota can technically make the playoffs, in my scenario, they don't. Spoiler alert. Big whoop. The People Eaters have another terrible season. But I see Minnesota winning this game because of one thing. Kirk Cousins is playing and Justin Fields is out, which means that Andy Dalton will be starting for Chicago. And I think going up against a defense like Minnesota, he is going to struggle. Chicago does not have the amazing playmakers it needs to help out a quarterback like Andy Dalton. And Minnesota having Kirk Cousins, this just strikes me as one of those games where if Kirk Cousins was in Washington and he's going into this game, he would have an incredible game and he'd walk into the tunnel screaming, "You like that? You like that? That's right." Yeah, I feel like it's going to be one of those games. But it will not. I do not think that it will save the head coach's job. I always forget his name. I don't think his name is Leslie Frazier. Mike Zimmer. Leslie Frazier was the coach, but Mike Zimmer, I don't think it saves his job. I think Minnesota and Mike Zimmer part ways after this. I think they maybe keep Kirk Cousins. Maybe. We'll see. If I'm a Minnesota fan, I would be willing to see Kirk Cousins with a different coach and see what happens because he is talented, but it's definitely time for some change in Minnesota. It's been too long. Next up, we have the Washington Reskins. I said Reskins. That should be their new name. I think it's hilarious. Versus the New York Giants. I won't spend much time on this one because it flat out does not matter. I think Washington wins this game because the Giants are quite possibly the worst football team I have ever seen. Yes, even worse than the 0-16 Browns. Yes, even worse than the 0-16 Lions. I really think that they're the worst team I have ever seen. They're so bad. They are inept. I've never seen a team accrue negative passing yards in a game in my life. You sitting there watching this right now, you had more passing yards than the New York Giants did this previous week in the National Football League, a professional organization with a dude who gets paid a ton of money to throw the ball. He had less passing yards than you sitting on the toilet right now. Anyway, Washington wins that game because they have their starting quarterback, and I think that Washington is a team that plays hard for their coach. I think they love Ron Rivera, so I expect Washington to win this game. Indianapolis versus the Jaguars. The Jaguars are going to lose. Doesn't matter who they play. They could go into the bye week. They're going to lose. But Indianapolis is playing for a playoff spot here. They have to win this game, which is wild because a couple of weeks ago everybody was screaming their praises and how, man, they're a giant killer. Man, I don't want to face them in the playoffs. Which is true. I wouldn't want to either. They're a dangerous team, but Indianapolis has to win this game. I don't see them losing against the Jags. It's the Jaguars, people. I'm not scared of them. I don't think anybody should be. So I expect Indianapolis to take care of business and get a wild card spot. Steelers versus the Ravens. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. One of these teams used to consistently be one of the best teams in the league. The other team has been one of the hottest teams in the league over the past 3 years. Steelers-Ravens. The two teams that always seem to meet up in fate-filled games. I'll just say it right now. I won't keep you waiting. I think the Steelers win this game. The Steelers are technically alive for the playoffs. A lot has to happen, but the Steelers are still technically alive, which for how mediocre their season has been, that surprises me. The Ravens, I think, are also still technically alive. Both of these teams need a lot of help, aside from winning the game. But I have the Steelers winning this game because the Ravens, I believe, are still without Lamar Jackson, which he helps them win games so much. And the Steelers still have Ben Roethlisberger. And it's not that he's very talented, but man, that team plays for Ben. Boy, do they play for Ben. I would be hard-pressed to find another team in the NFL that is more die-hard followers of their quarterback than the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is warranted. You're talking about one of the most tenured quarterbacks in the league. And for such a storied franchise as the Pittsburgh Steelers, to be able to say that this could be the final ride of the best quarterback in that franchise's history, that's saying something. That is one of the most decorated franchises in the league. And this could be Ben Roethlisberger's last game. So I expect it to be an emotional game, and I expect the Steelers to take care of business against a hated division rival in the Ravens. But I do expect both teams to still miss the playoffs. Up next, Jets versus Bills. The Bills are going to win this game. I don't see any way that the Jets manage to win this game. If Buffalo wins this game, they clinch the AFC East in back-to-back years, which would be a beautiful slap to the face of every single Patriots fan. I say fan loosely because they were really Tom Brady fans. But the Jets, I think, are going to get beaten by Josh Allen one way or another. Josh Allen is refining his game to a point where if he's having a bad day passing, he knows how to flip the switch and have a good day on the ground. And then, if he's not having anything going on the ground, he can flip it and really get that arm going. So he's refined his game enough to where if New York's defense is giving him fits, I think he will be okay to take what they give him, and he will help the Bills clinch back-to-back division championships, which would be phenomenal for Buffalo fans. Because I think a couple of years ago, if we were trying to figure out when the Bills would win the division next, I don't think anybody would have said last year or this year, especially with some of the early signs of Josh Allen. But luckily, he's managed to refine himself. A huge shout out to that coaching staff because they have turned him into the quarterback that a lot of us knew he could be. Up next, San Francisco 49ers versus the Rams. This was a really tricky one to call, but I am actually going to go with the Niners here because I think the Niners are a really gutsy team. They have a lot of heart and they play hard. They don't have the most talent on the field because the Rams, let's not mistake this. The Rams, as far as talent, are the most talented team in the league, except for maybe the Kansas City Chiefs. That's it. If we're talking about star power, the Rams have the most. And the Niners don't really. Like, who do they have? Really, as far as big names. What, Jimmy Jesus? Big deal. The dude that, fans are already screaming to run him out of town for the rookie who is not ready to start, but people still want Jimmy Garoppolo gone, even though he's a much better option than Trey Lance at this point. Niners fans always baffle me. But in this game, there's really not that much riding on it for the Rams. There is and there isn't, because if the Rams win, then they can solidify their playoff seeding, which kind of matters, but kind of doesn't, because they can't get the number one overall seed. So at this point, it doesn't really matter that much where they fall, because Yeah, and I mean, if they win, they do clinch their division, but again, I don't have that much faith in Arizona either. So the Rams are probably going to try to win this game as much as they can, but the Niners are playing for so much more here. The Niners are playing for a playoff spot. They are not guaranteed a playoff spot. So they're actually playing for something really huge here because I don't think anybody would have picked the Niners to make it to the playoffs this year. So they're kind of like the Raiders, where it's like they don't have to prove anything. The Rams kind of do. The Rams kind of have to prove that all the money they've thrown at the wall is worth it. Whereas the Niners are out there, like, you're just lucky to be here, honestly. And I think they understand that and they appreciate it and they're wearing it as a badge of honor. They can make the playoffs, which would be amazing for the Niners, a team that really has struggled to find its identity, figure out what the issues are ever since the Super Bowl loss to Kansas City. Them getting to the playoffs would really be awesome to get them over that hump. And I pick the Niners to win that game. I think they've got more guts than the Rams do, and the Rams have shown so much inconsistently over the past few weeks, and the only thing that's bailed them out is insane talent. I think that the Niners might be able to manhandle that talent a little better than the rest of the league. And I have to take a drink. Hold on. Okay. Next, we're winding down here. We have the Patriots versus the Dolphins. This is a really interesting one because I don't think Bill Belichick cares very much about home field advantage. Bill Belichick wants to beat the ever-living crap out of whoever is on the other sideline, no matter where he is. And he coaches that into his players. Every game is treated as an away game. You have no advantages if you're a Patriot. No, you don't. Don't think that you do, because you don't. The Patriots versus the Dolphins is an interesting game because the Dolphins have had the Patriots number like the Texans have had the Titans number. And also, apparently, I didn't realize this, but also the Jaguars have Indianapolis' number because the Jaguars have beat Indianapolis in Jacksonville every year since 2014. I didn't know that. And the game is in Jacksonville. So we'll see what happens. I still think Indy's going to win that game. But Dolphins-Patriots, this game always has a weird effect to it. Like, it's almost as if the league has accepted that the Dolphins are just going to beat the Patriots once every year at this point. But Tom Brady's gone. Mac Jones is in. It's a new era in this rivalry. So who knows what'll happen. But I actually have the Dolphins winning this game. Might come as a big surprise. But I think the Dolphins are going to win this game because that defense, when it's clicking, is really freaking good. Like, really good. Brian Flores knows how to call a defense, and it's really just up to the players to actually get it. I think that that's the issue. I think when Miami's defense isn't working, it's because the players are out of alignment, or they're just not committing to whatever the play is, or they're not performing the way that they have to in order to get the play call to work. I think that's usually the issue. But Brian Flores knows how to call a defense, and he also knows the Patriots. That's where he came from. So, all of that being said, Mac Jones struggles against effective defenses. They don't have to do anything super special, but just enough to confuse a rookie. Because Mac Jones is a rookie, and he's allowed to be a rookie, by the way. Patriots fans that are upset with Mac Jones when he doesn't perform, at the God tier that they expect, even though Tom Brady was never God tier. Mac Jones is a rookie, and he's allowed to be a rookie. It's okay to make mistakes. He's really, really good for a rookie. I'll definitely say that. He makes a lot of smart decisions, and when he makes a mistake, it's a bad one, but he's allowed to do that as a rookie. And I think that he's going to make mistakes against the Dolphins. I think they're going to get him. I think they're going to catch him on misreads and making mistakes on throws, or holding on to the ball too long in the pocket and maybe having a strip fumble against him. I think something's going to happen that lets the Dolphins win this game. And also, if they win this game and Tua has a good game, he might save his job. which I hope he does save his job, because he has not really had a fair shake, to be honest. He hasn't had an entirely full, healthy season. This year, something was wrong with the Dolphins. I don't think it was Tua. I think it was something else. But there are not enough weapons in Miami for Tua, and it's not like he needs to be bailed out by a ton of weapons, but he needs more help than he has. So I think if they can win this game, Tua might save his job. Flores' job is definitely safe, but I think the Dolphins can win this one through sheer physicality alone. And then wrapping up on the summary, we have the Panthers versus the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are going to win this game. I don't want them to win this game because I despise the most overrated player in NFL history, Tom Brady. But I don't see any way that the Panthers win this game. Now, if the Panthers do win this game, Matt Rule might save his job. I think his job is definitely in jeopardy. This is his second year as a head coach in the league. And hold on, guys. Okay. This is his second year as a head coach in the league. He's not doing well. He's really not. The decisions he's making for quarterbacks are baffling. And, a lot of people are quick to say, well, he hasn't had a quarterback to play for him. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that he has some influence on who they pick to be the quarterback as far as trading and signing in free agency and things like that. Pretty sure he has a say in that. So I don't really give him as much slack for that. And as far as talent, where is the talent? You can't rely on run CMC all the time, which that's Christian McCaffrey if you don't know. But you cannot rely on Christian McCaffrey all the freaking time. It's a modern era NFL. Unless your run scheme is just fantastic or your running back is named Derrick Henry, who literally looks to harvest the souls of the innocent at all times, you cannot rely on the run all the time. So I don't see a way that the Panthers win this game. I hate saying it, but I just don't see a way they do it. And the Buccaneers are going to win, and people are going to laud Tom Brady till the end of time and give him all the hugs and kisses in the world and say that he's the best quarterback ever and he just had the best season ever and that nobody will ever be as good as him. And then the NFL will happily carry him all the way to the Super Bowl like they always do. The end. Now, on to playoff predictions. Actually, not real predictions. We're not getting into that until the seeding is actually set. But real quick, because this episode's getting a little bit longer, and these episodes will probably usually be somewhere around an hour, because, it is a podcast. So, I can talk as long as I want, and hopefully you guys listen to me. But playoff seeding predictions. Let's go ahead and start with the NFC because that number one overall seed is actually set. Number one overall seed is the Packers. They get to have every playoff game at Lambeau, which is a huge advantage. That is one of the few NFL stadiums that I would say home field advantage is actually a thing as far as the crowd and the environment. So good for the Packers, good for Aaron Rodgers. I think that it's awesome that they've had the season that they've had, and I do think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be the MVP. If Derrick Henry had stayed healthy, I think it would have been him. But Packers, number one overall seed, and I think back-to-back MVP Aaron Rodgers. The number two seed, unfortunately, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even though they've had a stupidly soft schedule, and that's where a lot of their wins have come from, and whenever they play a good team, they lose. Buccaneers are going to be the number two seed and play a weak team so that they're guaranteed to the next round. The number three seed with my scenario is the LA Rams, because even though I think the Rams are going to lose, I think the Cardinals are going to lose as well, which will give the Rams the NFC West. I don't know what to say about the Rams. I think they'll be a one and done in the playoffs. I actually think that they might lose in the first round of the playoffs, especially considering who they're going to play, which we'll get to in a second, if my seeding comes out. Number four seed, Cowboys, which again, I think could be a one and done, especially because of, again, who they will have to play which is the Cardinals. The Cardinals I have as the number 5 seed in this scenario. They would go to Dallas and play the Cowboys in a rematch of the game that we just saw this week. And I think that the Cardinals would win the rematch solely because of Kyler Murray's physical abilities. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury has anything to do with their success this year. I really don't. The number 6 seed in the NFC playoffs I have as the San Francisco 49ers, who would play the Rams, which is why I said I think the Rams would be a one and done, because I think the Niners would beat the Rams again in the playoffs. LA does not have a home field advantage in their stadium. Los Angeles does not care about football. They haven't for years because that city doesn't care about anything that has to do with camaraderie or community. Now, the Eagles are the number 7 seed, and they would play the Buccaneers. I have no idea how that game will play out at all. I don't. Because the Eagles have been such a wild card, literally, this year, that I don't know how to predict that game. I really don't know how to call it. But, again, real quick, running down the NFC, Packers number 1, Bucks number 2, Rams number 3, Cowboys number 4, Cardinals number 5, Niners number 6, and the Eagles number 7. That is how I have things shaking out in the NFC because there's not as much wiggle room in that conference. It's easier to call it. The AFC, I have the Titans as the number 1 overall seed in the AFC because I think they'll take care of business against the Texans, and it doesn't matter what happens if they beat the Texans. They will be the number 1 overall seed. And for losing Derrick Henry for the last, 7 games of the year and still clinching the number 1 overall seed in the AFC, dang, people better be scared of the Titans. I'm a Titans fan, and I'm scared of the Titans managing to do that. Mike Vrabel is an amazing coach. He knows how to beat other teams. I think that he's Belichick 2.0. He doesn't necessarily know how to have the best team in the league, but he knows how to beat whoever's on the other sideline. So I'm scared of the Titans this year in the playoffs. But I have them as the number 1 seed. Number 2 seed, Kansas City Chiefs. They could have been the number 1 overall seed, but they dropped that game to the Bengals. And losing to the Titans earlier in the season is really hurting them now, isn't it? Because that's the tiebreaker. And that's why if the Titans and the Chiefs end up with the same record, it doesn't matter because the Titans beat the Chiefs convincingly. That was an ugly game. I watched that one from beginning to end. That was a rough game. Number 3, Cincinnati Bengals. Actually, I don't think anybody would have called that at the beginning of the year, but Bengals getting the 3 seed. It looks good. It feels good. And I'm actually kind of scared of the Bengals in the playoffs. Number 4 seed, Buffalo Bills. I have them clinching the AFC East. If they win, that is it. They get the AFC East and the number 4 seed. They cannot go any higher than the number 4 seed. And they have for sure clinched a playoff spot. So pretty much anything can happen with them, but they can't go higher. Now, I have some chaos happening because I think the number 5 seed is actually going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. I told you guys earlier, I think the Chargers are going to drop one to the Raiders because they're going to fall under pressure, because that team does fall under pressure this year. And it's no fault of their own. They're a really, really young team. I don't hold it against them, but I think the Raiders are more mature. I think Derek Carr is going to come out with vengeance and really, really want to get back to the playoffs. And players like Hunter Renfrow are going to pop up out of nowhere and make the plays that they need to make in order to win. And I have the Raiders as the number 5 seed. And then the Colts would be the number 6 seed because I do still expect them to take care of business against the Jaguars. The playoffs are on the line. The Colts are a mature team. I think their coaching staff is great, and I expect Jonathan Taylor to do business against the Jaguars. So I have the Colts making the playoffs as the number 6 seed. And then, last but not least, the Patriots are the number 7 seed. That to me sounds crazy because of their record, but that's just what's been going on in the AFC this year. I have the Patriots as the number 7 seed because I think they will lose to the Dolphins. And that, with everything else that I have coming out of this scenario, that will actually drop the Patriots to the lowest seed in the AFC. That is insane. And if this is what happens, the Patriots would have to go to Arrowhead and play the Chiefs. And I guarantee you that would be one of the most hostile environments in the playoffs. Chiefs hate the Patriots with all they have got. And what's even worse, the Chiefs fans hate the Patriots with all they've got. And I've been in that stadium when it's loud. A rookie quarterback like Mac Jones, he might think he's played in loud before. He hasn't. Arrowhead is a whole different beast in terms of loud. I've been to a major college football game. Like, I was at Manhattan when Kansas State won the Big 12 championship in 2012. I was there for that. And that was an incredibly loud environment, insane. You couldn't even hear. And then I went to Arrowhead. Arrowhead is louder than a major college stadium. It just is. Those fans are nuts, and they're awesome. So many fans were drunk. They were still nice. I had an amazing time. This old lady spilled powdered sugar on my hoodie and apologized and then gave us hand warmers. Like, it was great. But I do have the Patriots as the lowest seed. Anyways, wrapping up the AFC, Titans number 1, Chiefs number 2, Bengals number 3, Bills number 4, Raiders number 5, Colts is the number 6 seed, and then the Patriots rounding out the AFC. And then we will get into different scenarios and predictions for the playoffs after the seeding is set, and we will actually have our co-host on the show. I won't spoil who it is yet. It's not Derek. I will tell you that. It's not Derek. It's actually a new person on the channel that you guys don't know. But he's someone that I've talked about doing a sports podcast with for like a year now. And now that I'm finally doing it, he's going to join in next week. He wasn't able to this week just because we were so under the gun to get this done and uploaded for the NFL season finale. But he will be with us next week to go over the NFL playoff predictions and seedings, and also wrapping up the NFL season and talking about the offseason for the teams that did not make the playoffs. But thank you all so much for joining in on this new experience. I'm really excited to start this channel. Like, I think I'm going to treat it as a different channel, but this is going to get uploaded to Boo Crew Plays just to kind of see how it goes and what the popularity is. But I'm excited. I love sports. I've loved them my whole life, and I think that my friend and I have awesome points to add to a lot of these topics. There's definitely demand for more casual approaches to sports that just care about the sport, and we think we can add to that. So we look forward to this adventure. Thank you all so much for listening to this. If you did, we really appreciate it. Go ahead and subscribe, drop a like, talk to us down in the comments below, ask sports questions. We would love to get involved with the people watching this, and we hope that you come around for the next episode. See you guys.